Welcome to part of our environmental series. Who knows what we're talking about when we say environmental? Anybody? Everybody? What does that mean? Anybody? We're talking about, the word kind of defines itself.
Environment.
Environment, right. Okay, so the exhibit that we have right now is called Wash the Shore, Art Save the Sea. And if you guys have not seen it already, you will see it. And the exhibit was created in 2010. And the exhibit was created by Angela Posey. And she was in Oregon. And she basically started realizing there's so much trash that washes up out of the ocean and washes up onto the beaches, and there has to be something that we can do to bring the attention to the world, really. And she started creating these sculptures out of all of the trash that they started picking up. And you'll see a few of the sculptures here. There are many more sculptures that we don't have because we just didn't have space for this exhibit. But it should bring awareness to how much we need to save our environment. There are things that you all can do that will be talked about today that you all can do even now. And there's the excuse of I'm too young, or I don't have the money, or I'm not in the right place. We're not on the ocean, but there are waterways that, again, you'll hear about today that you guys, there are things that you all can do now, and you can make an impact on your world. This is the only one that we have, so let's try to save it, okay? So we're going to start off with a video. The video is by the Plastic Pollution Coalition, and it's narrated by the actor Jeff Bridges. And we'll start off with that video, and after the video, the person that you will hear from first is Ms. Lauren Marshall. Ms. Lauren Marshall works with the Arkansas Game and Fish Coalition, and she's an education specialist at the Arkansas Nature Conservatory that's right down the sidewalk right here, okay? And after Dr. Marshall, after Lauren Marshall, you'll hear from Dr. Mamie Parker. Dr. Parker is the former head of U.S. Fisheries, and she was appointed in the Clinton administration and served through the Obama administration. So she has a wealth of knowledge, and she's going to share with you as much as she can. And I just tell you, listen, I met her a year ago, and it was such an impact that I wanted to stay in touch with her, and I wanted to learn more from her because she knows so much. Okay, so we'll cue the video and get this program started.
Open your eyes. When did we become a plastic society? We got plastic bags, plastic water bottles, plastic straws, plastic cups, plastic wrap, plastic utensils, and plastic to-go containers. Plastic is a substance the earth cannot digest, and every bit of plastic that has ever been created still exists. Every day in the United States, we throw out almost 88,000 tons of plastic. Now, what happens to plastic after you use it? Well, most of it goes into landfills. A portion gets into the water course and eventually ends up in the oceans. Recycling is not a sustainable solution. It's actually called downcycling because plastic never goes away. Consumption of disposable plastics has spiraled out of control. What is the number one thing plastic is made out of? Well, every year we use 17 million barrels of oil to make plastic water bottles. This is enough to fuel 1 million cars every year. Plastic pieces on the ocean surface now outnumber sea life 6-to-1. Plastic makes up almost 90% of all trash floating on the ocean surface. 46,000 pieces of plastic per square mile. What effect does plastic have on human health? Plastic chemicals like BPA are absorbed by the body. Studies show that they alter hormones and disrupt the endocrine system. By refusing disposable plastic, you can improve the health of the ocean and the environment around us, including human health and animal health. Since 2009, Plastic Pollution Coalition has been building a global alliance to combat single-use disposable plastic. Our membership includes individuals, organizations, NGOs, businesses, campuses, and policymakers. We share resources, tools, and messaging with our coalition to develop a broad-based strategy to tackle the issue head-on. We're working with universities, businesses, festivals, musicians, and more to create replicable and sustainable approaches to eliminating single-use disposable plastic. Plastic pollution is a global problem that humans alone have caused. We can do something about it. Please join our coalition. For more information, visit www.plasticpollutioncoalition.org. Remember, bring reusable items with you, like a water bottle, a cup, a bag, utensils. Refuse plastic when it's offered. And remember to say, no straw, please. Only purchase items in sustainable packaging, like glass and wax paper.
Good morning. Like Cherie said, my name is Lauren Marshall. I'm an educator at the Central Arkansas Nature Center, and we are within walking distance of where you're sitting now. Our Nature Center is just right down in the heart of the River Market area. We are beside the Museum of Discovery, and we're offset from the street, so we're literally right there by the river. It's a really exciting place because we get to see upwards of 50,000 visitors a year. They're not just from Arkansas, they're from all over the world. So not only are we getting to share Arkansas's conservation story with the people of Arkansas and the United States, but globally also, and that's very exciting for us. Part of that is because the Colonial Library is here. We have a lot of visitors that come specifically to see whatever exhibit is touring through here, or to see the set exhibits in the history of the Clinton presidency. So we're excited to be able to partner with them in smaller ways and in bigger ways like today. I'm excited about this topic because it's very relevant, and it's something that we've been seeing, especially back in June. If you'll remember, we had all of that flooding. It was the historic flood. Hopefully it's the only time that we'll ever see one of that magnitude in our lifetimes. But not only did we see, all of that churning water, we saw dirt, we saw trees, we saw trash, we saw giant things moving down the river at an unprecedented rate. And a lot of times when we see that, we think, oh, we can't stop that. And I'm thankful that people didn't try to get into the river and stop that. But when we look now at the way the water's gone down, and the impact left behind, and the way humans, animals, and the environment were impacted, I think there's a lot of things that we can do now. And so I hope today will be a good call to action for you all. And like Charisse was saying, the excuses that we put in our own minds, the lies that we tell ourselves of we don't have time, we don't have the resource, we're too young, we're too slow, whatever that may be. I hope that you'll put all of those behind you today and think of something that you can do, because it's easy to just take one step and then take that next step and keep going. And then you too will become part of Arkansas's conservation legacy. So I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Parker.
Good morning. Wait a minute, you can do better than that. Usually I'm speaking in Montana, or I'm speaking in China, or Argentina, from the great state of Arkansas, and in our culture, when we call, you respond. So let me make sure I am in the right state and that I'm at home and try it one more time. Good morning. Good morning. All right, I think I'm there. Thank you so much. I think I will stay too. I am so excited to be here, and it's just wonderful to see a group of students like this that will have an opportunity to listen to people like Lauren and Sharice and others that are calling us to action, looking for ways in which we can make a difference in conservation, in ways that we can become environmental stewards of our own land. This land is your land, this land is my land. And so today, I'm going to spend some time talking to you about litter, and I'm going to do it in a way where I tie it into my life story, the Mamie Parker journey. And it's really great to be back in the home state of Arkansas, as I said earlier. But one of the other things in our culture that we do, our parents often told us, or our guardians, that when someone will do something great for us, we say what? Okay, so let's say thank you to the organizers of this great organization and what they've done to bring us all together. It's not easy, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So pretend you're at a Katy Perry concert or Beyonce concert, or who knows, you might be one of your other favorites. Give them a round of applause as if you just ended that concert. So I'm looking, how many of you got pennies in your pockets or in your purse? Anybody got a penny in your purse? That individual that's got a penny that's closest to the year that I was born, 1957, the oldest penny probably that you would have in your pocket. Anybody? Most people have cash cards now, right? Pennies. Yes, what do you have? Anybody over there, 19? Pardon? Cash out. Pennies, what does it say? Only one person in the whole place has a penny? Because I have $5 for that person. Where is it? What does it say? Right here, penny. For this $5, come on up. 2014, does anyone has a penny that's earlier than that? Closest to my birth year. What does it say? 2007, over here. I'm sorry. 1964. 1964. Can anyone beat that? 1966. That's close. That's close. Now, come on up. Come on and get your money. Maurice, congratulations to both of you all. So, now you never know. This is an incentive to stay awake. You never know when I'm going to ask you guys to do something, because there's a few more dollars up here. And I do have a cash app. I think I have PayPal too. All right, yeah. All right, so let me get started by saying that this is all about passion, inspiration, and excellence. And I call it passing the pie. I talk about this journey because it wasn't always an easy journey. And I'll tell you, being a woman in conservation is like being a pioneer. So when you see women like Lauren there, we are often alone in this field. And I see a lot of women out here in the audience. And I do believe that over the years it's changing a lot, where more women are entering in conservation, but not as many as we'd like to see, nor do we have the people of color that are entering the field as well. And so this journey is through my eyes, and it's all about a woman's perspective in this field of study. So I think about all of the challenges that we have when we think about the environment and when we think about climate change, and I put some of those up there just so we can get started. Of course, climate change has been in the news over the last few weeks. In fact, this past week was a good week for many of us to see really see youth getting out there, taking a lead, and also calling adults to action to say, we want this planet to be better when we leave, when you leave. So help us make sure that that happens. Water pollution. We're going to talk a little bit about that today because we're going to be talking about plastic and in the water system. But also water security. I do work in the Midwest, but also out west, where water is a big issue. And so we're going to talk about ways in which we can save our water and not waste as much of the water that we normally use in our lives, because that trend is heading in this direction, simply because climate change, one of the impacts of climate change has a lot to do with drought, and so water is an issue. Population growth, things are really growing, this country is really growing, but there are some consequences to that happening. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're cutting down trees everywhere. I live in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., and every day almost that I go by, I see people out there doing work where they're really cutting down a lot of trees, not realizing that trees are the lungs of our universe and why we need them, and that we need to figure out a way to minimize those types of things. And then finally, I put up there this polarized country that we're living in now, where we have 50% of the people thinking one way and 50% thinking the other way, and the challenges associated with that. I left one blank there because I thought maybe you could add something to this discussion. What are some of the other challenges that you believe we're facing when it comes to the environment? The willingness of people to really want to do it, the incentive to want to do it. I heard one over here too. Yes.
Pollution.
Pardon? Yes, pollution is, I put water pollution up there, but we also have air pollution. That's not up there anywhere, and that's a big one too when we think about what happens with air pollution as well. So those are some of the things we have to think about. But in order for us to change those things, we have to realize that we need that passion, we need that inspiration, and we need that excellence in making a difference. And so it's all about passing the pie. If you get nothing out of what I say today, remember to pass the pie. But it's an individual action as well as things that we can do collectively. So, Wilmot, Arkansas, 1957. My mother, Miss Piggy Parker, had already had 5 girls and 5 boys. Yes, she was about to have her 11th child. 2 years earlier, several years earlier, she was really concerned about how she was going to make all of this work out for her. But she knew that this was going to be her last child. And she said, you know what, I'm going to take this child with me to the outdoors. My mother was an avid angler. She loved gardening. She loved fishing. And she said, I'm going to take her outside. Him outside, in fact it was. My mother was also impressed with President Eisenhower at the time, and President Eisenhower was the President of the United States, and he had decided to send troops into Little Rock, Arkansas to escort girls and boys into Central High School. So her other promise was that I'm going to name my child after the president. So I'm so glad Mama didn't name me Ike. But she did name me Mamie. And Mamie was the first lady of the country at the time. And so my mother, throughout my life, tried very hard to talk to me and help me with some of the challenges and figure out how to overcome those challenges, and also encourage me to try hard to be the first lady of something. And so here starts that story. This is my first, around the area, my first home in Wilmot, Ashley County, Arkansas. It's right on the border of Louisiana, about 4 miles from there. And again, we were in a cotton field. Cotton fields were all around us, and that's why they had as many children as they did, because they worked in the fields. Not understanding all of the pollution and the problems that were there, but we were there. All that I am, and I hope to be, because she introduced me to Mother Earth, and that's Miss Mamie Parker. And I talked about Little Rock Central High School. I had a chance to go back there several years ago, a year ago, and speak at that school. But here is what's most important in my life and where I was introduced to the outdoors. Here's where I got life lessons from my mother on the banks of Bayou Bartholomew and Lake Enterprise in southern Arkansas. My mother told me one day in which I would never forget, when she talked about visualizing success. And that was really hard for me to understand it until I cast that line to catch a fish. How many fishermen, anglers do we have in the audience? Anybody? There are a few out here. But she said, you have to know that stream. You gotta know where the fish will actually live. You gotta know what they eat. You gotta understand the habitat of that area. And I didn't get it, except one day, there was a comedian on television. His name was Flip Wilson. And he had a character that he played. It was called Geraldine. And Geraldine was on one night and she said, what you see is what you get. And so my mother said to me, maybe you gotta visualize that fish at the end of that line in order to catch it. And so, again in life, she said, in order to achieve it, you gotta see it and believe it. We would line up one at a time in the mornings before we went to school, and my mother would tell each one of us, you are a Parker Rollins. I want you to go there and represent us well. Represent the family well. Do a good job. You're a piece of work. Look at your neighbor now and tell him you're a piece of work. Tell your neighbor you're a piece of work. Tell him you are a piece of work. Look at him now, tell him you're a piece of work. You're a piece of work. Now, that has double meanings, right? In our family, it meant you were part of the Parker Rollins family until we got to the twins and me. And then she was saying, you're a piece of work. You talk too much. You need to go to school. Be quiet, shut up, listen, and learn. And it was amazing because I think about that now. My mom told me to be quiet. And thank God right now, I make a lot of money running my mouth and talking. So she would do that often to us and tell us we're a piece of work. When we think about nature, when we think about the environment, we think about where we are in the world, we have to realize that we are a part of this chain, a part of this food chain, a part of this ecosystem, and how important it is for us to be there to protect it. 9th grade, my teacher introduced me to Marvin Gaye. There was a song that song was Mercy, Mercy Me. Things are not like they used to be. It said, where are all the blue skies? And then the song goes on to say, fish in the ocean are full of mercury. And that got my attention. In the voice of Arnold from Different Strokes, I thought to myself, and I asked a question to my teacher, what you talking about, Willis? How can you say that this is the fish that I eat? The protein in my diet pretty much came from the land that I lived on. And so to hear this was really hard. And I complained about it to my teacher quite often. And he said, well, you can do something about it. And that's one great thing about teachers. You guys are fortunate to have some great teachers here today. Give them a round of applause. Your teacher. He taught me a lot, and in fact, he was the first to tell me something that I thought was important when he said, practice moves toward perfection. Practice doesn't always mean you're gonna make perfect, but it moves toward perfection. He also really taught me about being in the present, being where I am and not where I thought I should be, but right there where I needed to be. I was always worried about my future, where it was going, what I was going to be doing. He helped me realize that that's not always that important. Think about the present and what you can do today to protect the environment. It was time for me to go to college. I wasn't sure what I was going to study, but I was really good at history, civics, and biology. And so when I got in line to register, in front of me, there was a political science major, and behind me was a biology major. They knew what they wanted to do. And so I had to make a decision right then and there to declare my major. I'll have to be honest with you. I chose biology. I loved it. I love the outdoors. I like doing things outside. But to be honest with you, I chose it because I had a crush on that biology teacher. And I wanted to impress him. He was going to be my baby daddy one day. So I decided to study biology. My first semester at the university, I had a chance to really think about what I was going to do with my future. And at the end of that semester, it was time for me to find a summer job. And so I applied for an internship. And I had a chance to talk to the individual from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about this internship and try to ask him, what is it about the job that was so great? And the one thing he told me, this is what I'll share with you all. If you can do something that you're passionate about, it won't feel like a job. It will feel like what you want to do. And so he was like a sleazy used car salesperson, not the great one, but a sleazy one. He sold me on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He led me to believe the job was going to be in Arkansas. And so I was happy about that. And I said, I get the chance to stay in my little home state of Arkansas. And by that time, I was over and done with this biology teacher. I had fallen in love with Jughead Stanley, a tractor driver down in Wilmot. And I was going to marry Jug and have a whole bunch of babies and stay right there in Arkansas. But he convinced me to consider going to Wisconsin. And I'll tell you, the biggest problem with doing that was the fear that I had to overcome. At the time, I had seldom gone north of Little Rock. So to think about going all the way to Wisconsin, that was a fearful thing for me. But I remember the words of my mother when she said, fear, false evidence, appearing real. F-E-A-R. Say that with me. False evidence, appearing real. Fear. And we have to figure out how to overcome that fear. We can't say that fear won't go away. Because some people tell you, just forget about it. I don't say that. Because I know that I get it, and I still get it every day. I had it when I saw all of you guys come into this room, and I thought to myself, oh my God, it's early in the morning. I got to figure out how to keep them awake. Fear, false evidence appearing real, because in my mind I could think about all the things that could happen when things don't go our way. But my mother said we have to be careful about that and not let it paralyze us. And that's what inspired me to take the job in Wisconsin. So I moved on to Wisconsin, and I came back to Arkansas, graduated, and I was so excited because I was back in the South. I knew that when I graduated that I was going to get to go to work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Guess where my next job was? In Wisconsin. This time, it was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This budding biologist, not only did she not get to stay south, but she went almost as far north as she could to work there. But it was here that I learned a lot about pollution. I worked on contaminants projects in the Great Lakes. I learned what it was all about when we talk about trash washing off streets into rivers and streams, and the waste that blows into streams and directly into the oceans, into the bay, in this case. And once it's there, how it degrades slowly and persists for a long time. And that's what we just heard from Jeff Bridges in his presentation. Large patches of it washing up on the shores. So this budding biologist really learned a lot. Learned a lot about river basins in Wisconsin too. I got a chance to go out and review a lot of projects, federal projects, bridges, highways, roads, and our job was to help engineers design those so they would avoid really impacting fish and wildlife. And so when you think about careers in conservation, and if you're thinking about an engineering job, you don't just have to think about doing engineering inside. You can think about being an environmental engineer, which we work really closely with. Looking at river basins, looking at watersheds to see what happens in those areas. Also, really, over the years, I had a chance to do a lot of work on pollutions and waterways and rivers and streams. But here, I worked in the Great Lakes. Had to overcome that fear. Had to learn how to scuba dive. Courage is doing something what you need to do before you're faced to do it. I had to remember to overcome that fear. But again, I remember the verse of my mother when I watched The Wizard of Oz, when Glinda the Good Witch said, "It's already in you. It's already in you. You just need to listen to it and realize that it's there." And so I worked in many of these cities because I had all the intentions of going back south, but my next job was in Madison, Wisconsin. And so in life, sometimes we have big dreams, big goals, but sometimes we have to take small steps. Madison is exactly 121 miles south of Green Bay, but I was headed in the right direction. So I went to Madison. I went to school there. I had a chance to do a lot more work on environmental impacts. Worked on bald eagles, worked on other species, fishery species at a national fish hatchery. Learned a lot about listening. And this is something, again, in conservation, as an environmental steward, we have to listen to others that might not necessarily agree with us and our point of views. And these are some of the terms that I've learned to use quite frequently in this world. In the end, the question is, how can I fix this? What can I do? What's the one thing that I can do to make a difference? If we don't think like that, we'll get overwhelmed with all our thoughts about ways in which we can make a difference in conservation. So I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was here I learned a lot about streams again. And I wanted to talk about streams in an area that you might be familiar with. Those up there? What are those? Yes? What? Rivers from Arkansas rivers, right? And they're also called, what are rivers that run into larger rivers called? Wow, this is a smart group. Where are you guys? Stay louder. What are they?
Tributaries.
Tributaries. These are tributaries of what river?
Mississippi.
Mississippi River. Are there some that I left off? Other rivers? Yes. Name one. Say it louder. The Buffalo River, yes, that's a great place to go canoeing too, right? Yeah, the Buffalo River, one of my favorite ones, yes. Others? The Lower Missouri? Others? Yes, the Current River too, isn't it? The Current River is in near the Boot Hill of Missouri, Current River. So these are rivers that when we talk about rivers that are running into oceans, these are examples of some of those. However, our Mississippi River runs into what? At the end. It's 26 states. It starts up in Minnesota, goes all the way down to Louisiana, and runs into what?
Mexico.
The Gulf of Mexico. I'm so proud of you all. And again, this is where we see a lot of pollution in the Gulf of Mexico and oceans like this. We see industrial waste, air pollution. We see agricultural runoff, which is a big one for the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. Pesticides, herbicides in there, invasive species. 80% of the ocean pollution comes from the land, both point as well as non-point. And when we say point, what do you think we're talking about? Point sources that are going into the rivers, into the oceans. Point meaning what? Pardon? That means points are the areas where you know it's coming from, where you can say that pollution is coming directly from that facility, that particular area. Non-point source is the problem that we have. Point source might be the trash that we put in the streams because we know that we're putting it there. Non-point sources are coming from everywhere. The herbicides that we put on our lawns are a big cause of some of the problems we have with our streams. That's considered a non-point source. And it's very hard for regulatory agencies to really figure out ways to stop that. Residential trash, that's a big one. I'm going to talk about invasive species later. So the effects of pollution on human beings, and again, Jeff Bridget talked a little bit about this, but with muddy landscapes, we get contaminated foods from all of the pesticides and herbicides, diseases, he talked about those, heart disease, lung disease from air pollution, and things like that. So there are a lot of impacts of these on species. Trash, ocean trash. I left Madison and I wanted to go which way? South. My next job was in Columbia, Missouri. And it was in Columbia, Missouri that I learned to work with farmers. And I did a lot of work on ducks and, looking at habitat for various species of animals like ducks. And again, just looking at some of the streams and the pollution that we put in ourselves. For example, balloons that we release in the air. We think that's really, really great. And I was one of the guilty ones. When I got married, this was one of the things that I did, was release these balloons in the air with messages on them for people I thought that really needed them. Now I know the impacts of doing something like that. So I moved to Columbia, Missouri, worked with farmers in growing wildlife on their land. And that was a really great job to have. My next job, I wanted to go which way? My next job was in Atlanta, Georgia. Hated it, partly because I had a bad relationship with my boss. And some of the things didn't work out. But while I was there, I had a chance to work on species all along the Atlantic shore and the Atlantic coast. And one of the things that we saw with the impacts associated with litter, what is that plastic there? What's that? Yes, the soda. And look what happens to turtles, sea turtles and other turtles, when they get entangled in this type of plastic. And so this is something that's easy to do. In fact, people are being very innovative now, and they're figuring out ways to make those, and they're edible. So the aquatic species can actually eat them, and they won't have those concerns there. But that's why we have to be careful about that. I also had a chance to work with manatees for the first time, and it was really an exciting opportunity there to do that. I enjoyed the job a lot, saw a lot of litter as I did a lot of diving and went along streams, so it was really exciting to see that. This just shows you some of the things that the plastic and the pollution that's in our waters. This one I thought was a good one. It says, you see the difference, a turtle does not. What do you see there? You see those plastic bags? And then on the other side you see the aquatic animals there. And that's amazing. And so this is what the turtle will see. And that's why we have to be really careful about what we do with bags. But when I say I had a bad relationship with my boss, here's what I practice. What Dr. Steve Covey talks about. He talks about the 4 cancers of life. These cancers are criticizing, complaining, negatively competing, and comparing. I practiced every one of these with my boss. It was amazing because in doing so, I was unable to really build a relationship with him. Everybody else talked about him, so it was easy for me to do the same thing. So I piled on, so I criticized. I complained to any one of my friends that would listen to me. If they heard me, I told them how terrible he was. I competed with him. And competing is okay when it's good competition. But when it's bad, and we know what bad competition is all about. And then I compared him to other individuals and my work ethics and what I did. And this was almost a career derailment for me. I had really moved up in the organization and was doing really good. But this really hurt me a lot. I want to stop right now. I want to ask you to talk to a person that's sitting right next to you. I want you to pick one of those that you feel you could really work on and do something about it, to change it. When you leave this room today, I want you to say, I'm really going to work on complaining about having to get up so early in the morning. I'm going to really use some positive self-talk when I start competing with my friends. Find one of those and share it with your neighbor right now. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and each of you take time to say, here's something I want to work on. Take some time to do that right now. I'm taking photos while you're doing that. I'm not going to ask you to share those. These are for you and only you. With your partner. I'm on my way over here to make sure you're doing it. Pick one of them. I got money to give away, right? Money to give away, and I hear you talking. All right, oh, he got a good one. All of them. We got to work on all of them. I'm on my way over here to see where I can bring this money for those that are really participating in this exercise. Who's your partner? Turn around. Huh? You need a partner? She needs a partner. She needs a partner. Oh, you already talked. Okay. You talk? You guys talk? The four cancers of life. Which one do you want to work on? That's a big one. All right. This is confession time. Confession time. Everybody got partners over here? Huh? I heard complaining. Do I hear criticizing? Anybody listen? That what you did?
Pretty bad about criticizing my peers for being lazy sometimes.
Oh, see, this is confession time here. This is like somebody raised their hand if they got that same one. Does he have any friends? Raise your hand if you chose. Raise your hand if you picked criticize. There are some others over there. There's another hand over there. Yes, criticize. Any more over here? Yes. You want to share or not? No? Little shot, I'm gonna make you. All right, anybody else? Over here. Did I see another hand for criticizing? Yes. Tell us what you're gonna stop doing.
I need to stop criticizing other people.
In general.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Others. What about competing? Yes. Oh, criticizing. Yes.
I don't know, I like kind of criticize the higher ups of like anything that I'm part of, mostly school. I guess like, I won't say like exactly who I would criticize, but ever since like middle school I was criticized either a principal or like superintendent.
All of the time. Wow.
Not all the time, but like if it's something that didn't really work out well or like it wasn't helping the student body at all, I kind of like had a very big opinion about it.
Well, let me tell you something. All of these are not bad. Excuse me. I'll get you to take my photo up there. I'm done. All of these are not bad. When they're done in a way, constructive criticism is okay, right? If it's done in the right way, right? Complaining, I figured it out. I take 2 minutes to do all my complaining, and then I say I'm done. Okay? So practice that, because you might not get it right all of the time. The songwriter says we fall down, but we get up. We fall down, but we get up. For winners are losers that fall down, but get back up again and again and again. So you're not always going to get these right, but you're going to keep trying. And you're going to work on them. And again, if it's constructive criticism, you give it, you tell what impact it's having on you, you tell what impact it's having on the people in your setting, and then the songwriter says what I like best when he says, after you've done all you can, You just stand. Just stand. Stand. Competing. As I said, negatively competing. It's okay to compete against yourself or compete against someone that if it's going to make you better at what you're doing, but that negative competition. And then comparing, this is the one that was hardest for me because I've always compared myself to my brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters, they all knew their dad, they all had a chance to spend time with their families, their parents, their father's family. I am an illegitimate child. My mother fell in love with my dad. He was a prominent man on the other side of the track. And I wanted a dad like they had. And so I complained a lot. I compared a lot. But what I've learned over time, when I went to good counseling, professional help, is that when you compare, you're either putting someone up above you or someone where? Below you. And so now when I think about the fact that I'm an illegitimate child, I say, I'm just their love child. Just their love child. So be careful about all of these cancers of life, because they will make a difference in your life. So I left Missouri simply because one day the boss came to town from Minneapolis, and he said, what is it that I can do for you to help you all do your jobs better? I said, you really need some people that's got some field experience. The people in the regional office, they've never worked on the ground. And you need to really, really get some people that know fish and wildlife, that's been out there counting animals, that are out there understanding what's going on. So he said you can become a part of the problem or part of the solution. So my next job was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I went there with two intentions. Number one, to do more work on the Great Lakes and the big rivers. But I also said it's time for me to do something for myself. And the first thing I did was to try to find a husband in Minnesota, a black man. It was like finding water. So I found Mr. Artist Home. One of the things that he taught me, he had read a lot of work by Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin said, what good have I done this day? What good have I done this day? And again, you've been called to action by Lauren and others about what you can do in the world of pollution. And so I put some things up here. Number one, planning. I think that's really something that we don't always do. And if you recall, Jeff Bridges said, make sure you bring your own straws if you feel like you need straws, or bring your own bottle. To make sure that you're using less plastic in your lives. Stop running water. What are some ways we can stop running water? Turn off. When you brush your teeth, how long do you leave the water running? An average of how many minutes? 2 minutes, and guess what? That's 1 gallon per minute. So try putting the toothbrush there, putting the toothpaste on the brush, putting a little water on it, turning it off, and then turn it back on when you're ready to rinse. Can I get some amens or some, we'll try that? Any thumbs up? Let's try that. All right, I got some over here. All right, let's try that at home and see if we can at least save some water that way. Stop running water. Also, when we shower, one of the things that I've been practicing, and it's not easy, but it works. When I get in the shower, before I get in, the water is cold, right? So what do? We run the water until it gets warm, right? So, I have been collecting that water to water my plants, reusing that water to wash my dishes. And that's not always easy because you gotta have a pail right there, you gotta stop and think about it. But if we plan ahead, these are some of the things that we can do. Recycle, reuse, and reduce. I want to talk a little bit about reducing because that's the big one for us. And a lot of it has to do with the food that we waste. Food waste is a lot of problems when it comes to climate change. We need to be a lot more careful about that. And you want to testify and tell your experience?
Well, we were talking earlier when we first got here, and I said, on Sunday, like when you go buy groceries and I buy like all these vegetables, and I'm really thinking like, I'm gonna be good this week. And then as you sit there through the week, you're like, God, I want some green beans today. thrown all your stuff away. So I said, I can only be the person that I thought I was on Sunday. The rest of the week, we can help ourselves.
We can help ourselves, and I go to Costco. Amen, she said, and I go to Costco and I buy all the romaine lettuce. I throw it away by Friday. So we gotta be real careful about food waste. In this country, I've had a chance to go and do some work in Africa and spend time there, and I just watch how they are so scarce with their food, and how even in Europe, you know, they don't give you ice unless you ask for it. There are just certain things that we can do to make things better. The final one is spread the word, and how important it is for us to tell others about what we've learned. I'm a member of the Rotary Club with Don Lauren Merrifield in Northern Virginia, and Rotarians, they see me with my straws at every lunch. And what I've noticed is what Dr. Covey talks about when he says that circle of influence. A couple of weeks later, I saw another lady bring in a metal straw. Another guy brought in a metal straw. They gave them paper straws, and everybody hated those because they stuck to their lips and everything. So they started using metal straws. So the circle of influence, you have the opportunity to influence others. So I was working at the time in Minneapolis, and then it was time for me to move on to Atlanta. And then I had a chance to go to Washington. And this was my first job as a chief of staff at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I learned a lot about many different things that were going on and many of the challenges that they were having there. But the biggest thing that I learned working, again, my boss was appointed by President Bill Clinton, and I was her special assistant or chief of staff. I learned a lot about egos. And egos, my mama said, edging goodness out. E-G-O. Edging goodness out. And here's some of the things that I learned over time, and I had to work on there in that office. It was amazing to me. I told the story on NPR Morning Edition where these ladies, and they were the janitors in that building, and every morning they would come, a different group of them would come and peek in my door. I was like, why are these women coming and looking at me? And why are they in this room and watching me? And finally I asked, and one lady told me, she said, I've been cleaning this building for many, many, many years. This is the first time that I've seen a woman of color in here except to empty the wastebasket. She said, you're making history here, and you're inspiring the rest of us. Well, what was amazing about it wasn't just the women in the building that would come in and tell me that. The women and men from the South would come in too. We're proud of you because you're a Southern girl, a girl raised in the South. And just to understand that when we are pioneers, when we are doing things like this, that we are there to show others that they can do it too. And thank you to the state of Arkansas. It was during this time that I got inducted into the Arkansas Outdoor Hall of Fame because, again, the first Arkansan to rise to be the head of fisheries in this country, which is like being the head of fisheries in this world, came because of that experience. But it was hard because there were a lot of egos. Embracing failure, there's a lot of failure in that office. Living by bending is important. And mountaintop mining was one of the more challenging things that I had a chance to deal with. And you see what happens with mountaintop mining? Are you familiar with this process? To your right, you'll see they cut off the top of the mines. And, they cut off the top of the mines, and when doing that, all of the sediment flows down into the stream. And this is in West Virginia. It goes straight into those streams. And our job was to try to stop this or slow it down. It wasn't very easy. It was politically incorrect at the time to do that. And so my ego got in the way because I was asked to stop coming to the meetings. I did a lot of those 4 cancers of life that I talked about earlier. And that was really hard. So I moved on to my next job was in Massachusetts, where I had a chance to work on Atlantic salmon, worked as a regional director from Maine down to West Virginia, and worked a lot with dams and removing dams from streams so fish could ghetto street. But was one of the most challenging days of my life. It was 9/11. This is when those planes hit the towers in New York. And it was here, a part of the region that I worked in. One of our employees was on one of the planes that had hit the folks and was about to hit the White House in Washington. They were in Pennsylvania. And he shared his story to his parents on the phone, apparently. And the story was, we are going to take these hijackers down. We're not going to let them take this plane where they want to. So they went to the back of the plane and they came up with a plan of things that they could do. They didn't have many resources to do what they needed to do. They looked around and they looked at people's purses, they grabbed things from their bags, and then they went to the back of the plane and they got in a huddle and they said, let's roll. Let's roll. And so in life, you're not going to have everything that you want, but what you want to do is what you have, you want to make the best of it. You want to make sure that you do what you need to do. He died in that plane accident, but he is our hero today because of this story and others that he told. It's people like him and people like my family that continues to make me want to be a great environmental steward and make life better for others. I just work on polar bear in Alaska. It's amazing to see the melting ice that we have now where polar bears are not able to live the way they need to. Invasive species. These are species that are non-native, that really force our native species. They have to be in competition. The black carp and silver carp are two of the ones, particularly the black carp here in Arkansas. Passion. I talked about inspiration with my family and others. And then it's excellence. These are some of the things that I learned the hard way. The one that's really important is that when you don't know everything, still affirm that you will work hard. Expect change, and many times, don't take it personal. And it's all about excellence in going and growing. And knowing that no matter where you are, that you need to keep growing and going. And so, this is my new hot dog here for a few years. His favorite quote is, life can be hard, but life is usually long. And so you're young, you got a lot of chances to do a lot of great things in life. And I just want to encourage you to keep trying, keep thinking about ways in which you can be environmental stewards, ways in which you can avoid putting plastic, putting trash in places it doesn't belong, and ways in which you can help make the world a better place. And so now I'm going to open it up for questions. You want to do that, Mamie?
Yes, I just wanted to quickly, could you tell them about the issue that you all were seeing in Maryland with the crabs and the birds and everything? It just kind of shows them how it's a
Circle of life.
Yes, how it's a circle of life.
Yeah, so one of the jobs that I had when I worked in Massachusetts, part of my area was the state of Maryland, and she's talking about horseshoe crabs. And horseshoe crabs, they are not just there for the crabs themselves, but there's a bird that's called a red knot, and it's a migratory bird that travels a corridor from North America all the way down to South America. And what was amazing is that we saw the population of that bird decreasing, and we weren't sure what was going on. And so what we realized was the bird did not have the food that they needed to eat. There was one stop that they made where they got most of their protein in their body that they needed to help them keep moving south to South America so they could reproduce and we could see more of them. And what we found out was the horseshoe crabs. And the horseshoe crab population had declined. And it had declined because they use horseshoe crab, the serum in horseshoe crab, for a lot of medicinal purposes, a lot of medicines. You'll see a lot of medical companies are using horseshoe crabs for that purpose. And so it was our job to figure out how to reach out to the industry and talk to them and encourage them to say, you're not going to have crabs to do what you need to do. The birds won't have crabs to do what they need to do. So how do we work together to make a change here? We also did something that was, people ask me what is the thing that I'm most proud of in my world as a conservationist. And it was really working with the pharmaceutical companies. And this was years and years ago. When we got them to agree to start a campaign in all of the drugstores. And now you see where you can bring your medicines back, smart disposal. We started that program working with the American Pharmaceutical Association. And so again, when you talk about the work that we do, it can't be done individually. It has to be done collectively. And we need corporations, we need private individuals, we need government, we need everybody to make a difference in that world. Good?
Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. You all give her a hand first. We're going to have the next 2 minutes towards the end of the program now for a Q&A session. If there are some questions that you want to ask Dr. Parker, or some questions that you want to ask Lauren, Miss Marshall, excuse me. You want to ask Miss Marshall. Ms. Marshall could probably speak more locally right now since she is in, although Dr. Parker is from Arkansas, since Ms. Marshall is working in Arkansas through Game and Fish. She can probably speak more locally about our waterways, about conservation efforts, and then whatever questions you have for Dr. Parker. So if you all have any questions, we have a mic on that end, Cassie, and a mic on this end. So please feel free to ask any questions that you have. Anybody?
The massive flood that was earlier this year and all the devastation that it caused. And so what is the way in which the Game and Fish is going about cleaning that up? Because there's trash everywhere, all the dead animals and all the things that was left with the flood.
That's a hard deal because we have to work with FEMA, we have to work with ADEQ, you know, there's a lot of partnerships, and that's not the hard part. The hard part is getting everybody at the table together at the same time in the region saying, okay, this is what's going to be best, not only for right now, but in the next 3 months when it gets cold, when spring turns around again. And the biggest challenge right now is, like you said, with the animals and, what seasons are being disrupted for breeding, what seasons are being disrupted for eating, what seasons, are coming into like peak hunting or fishing seasons. And so there's a lot of things to consider. And the biggest thing that they really pushed was also infrastructure, because if you can't get to it, you can't fix it. And so we've had a great crew just partnering with the state of Arkansas in general, with FEMA, with ADEQ, like I said, of making sure that we can get in there and either check areas or actually bring things out. Game and Fish is small compared to what you think of, what we need as a state. And so we have a lot of great partners just within cities, towns, and individuals like y'all that are like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? And so a lot of the work that actually gets done is volunteers and people coming in and saying, okay, this butts up against my property. If you can get me the equipment, or if you can get me what I need, I can do this. So we're trying to work with like grants and making sure that the people have what they need to help them get back to what we would consider normal at this point.
And this is for both Lauren and Dr. Parker. Can you all share with the students that may be interested in careers in biology, environmental science, chemistry, sciences in general, what kind of resources are available locally that things that they can start doing now? And then also, Dr. Parker, if you could talk about resources that are available, internships, things that they can maybe do within their schools, even now to start preparing
So my degree is actually in recreation and park administration, so it's more the people side instead of the animal management side. But there are so many great resources here in Arkansas, because you think about, we've got state parks, we've got Arkansas Game and Fish, we've got Keep Arkansas Beautiful, and the Natural Heritage Commission that are all funded through the 1/8% conservation sales tax. So we don't have to worry about like tourism funding what we need, or a specific tax on one thing funding what we need. Like, everybody in Arkansas helps with this. And because of that, not only can you go to these places for free, so if you want to go out and just become part of the resource, you know, you can go hiking, biking, canoeing, all of that. And just being out in the resource gives you a idea of that's what you're passionate about. Because like what Mamie was saying, if you're not passionate about it, at the end of the day, you're like, okay, another day, another dollar, I'm going back at it again tomorrow. So become part of that resource. See if, or where, you know, you're most passionate about. Here in Arkansas, there are a lot of colleges that are very affordable, that are accredited in those fields of study, whether it's fisheries and wildlife, whether it's recreation, whether it's environmental science or ecology. And so if you go to a career fair or a college fair, you know, check with these colleges and say, or ask, you know, where are you accredited? Where can I get the most experience? Volunteering, again, is a huge deal. Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, the state parks, things like that. We're always looking for people to help with a project or a class, or if you are passionate about a specific wildlife species or fish species or something like that, mentorship is a huge thing right now. And you can be part of that chain. So you don't have to be a certain age to be a mentor.
I totally agree. Volunteerism is so important, but also showing someone. The people that I usually hired were those people that showed me they were hungry for what I had. Those were the individuals that followed up with a phone call. They were the ones that text me after a speech and say, I want to do something in this field. They were the ones that asked for a shadowing assignment. Just let me spend one day with you or a half day with you out in the field. Otherwise, you get hundreds of people that are there looking for the same thing that you're looking for. But those that really went out of their way and showed some assertiveness and showed some interest were the ones that really did really well. Internships are there from NOAA Fisheries to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service. All of those individuals, they have jobs that are available there. But for the most part, a lot of the jobs are done by word of mouth and who you know, and how you can get them to see you, hear you, understand your work ethics. And I think that's what's important to do. Go online, look for those opportunities, look for individuals that you feel like, I would love to spend some time with this individual. You'd be surprised how many people would say yes. I tell them to start asking for 1 hour and then maybe move up to 2 hours, because a whole day is a lot for somebody to ask. But ask them if you can spend some time with them as well. So those are some of the things. Make your application be something that stands out. And as Lauren has said, those applications that show that you've done volunteer work, those applications that show that you have shown an interest. And it doesn't have to be totally outdoors either. That's what I tell people. We have engineers, we have public affairs people, we have land acquisition people, real estate people, we have public affairs people that write news releases. And so there are all kinds of jobs, accountants, lawyers. The lawyers, I work more with attorneys than anybody else in the field, because there's always litigation there. So environmental attorneys are also very popular in our field.
What are some things that they need to start doing within their schools to start conservation projects?
So the Green School Alliance, are you guys familiar with the Green School Alliance? Go online and look them up. They have where you can join the Alliance. It's a national school program where they They give you all the tools and tips for ways in which you can recycle, the ways in which you can actually get kids engaged in reducing and recycling. They have a network so you can meet other students throughout the country that are doing some of the similar work there. And you can really move toward making your school a green school. And so to me, that would be one great way to do it because the models are already set. I'm a strong believer in these pollinators and pollinator gardens. It's a way to get everyone involved to attract butterflies. The monarch butterfly population has really dropped over the years. And so we're encouraging gardens all over the country to improve the population of monarch butterflies, yes.
Yeah, in Arkansas, we have what's called the Schoolyard Habitat Program. And Sheila is our coordinator here. She does an amazing job of going to schools and getting them what they need. So you can create raised beds, you can create what we call rain gardens, you can do all sorts of different things. And the goal is to create a watchable wildlife site, whether that's birds, whether that's pollinators, whether that's amphibians. And it's really a lot of fun because it's something so easy. It's something that has a benefit not only for animals but for yourself, because when you see animals, your blood pressure goes down. When you connect with something that's outdoors, that stimulates a part of your brain that isn't normally stimulated when you're staring at a screen or at a white piece of paper. So that's an awesome way to get involved. I'm kind of with Maggie, the war on lawns. Like that's my next thing I'm going to tackle this spring. Is that there are millions and millions and millions of acres that are just mown grass. And we could totally turn that into habitat so easily, and manage that so easily, and start to see, your base things, your things that are on the ground, and then the things that, use those for food or for shelter, like birds, like your larger mammals. I think we could see a huge increase in certain populations if we started to change the way we looked at our lawns.
So how many of you like art? Raise your hand if you're into art. Rain barrels. We get rain barrels to collect rainwater, but we paint them and we put really beautiful sights on those. And so we do an outdoor project where they actually get the rain barrel in, and artists will come out and help us for those of us that don't have that in our brains to do it, but we can use our labor to get it done. So collecting rainwater to water our plants and to wash some of our clothes and things like that, rain barrels are a good way too for schools to get involved.
I was just wondering if y'all have looked into composting, because I know a lot of people talk about recycling, but there's a lot of biodegradable stuff that we do provide. Now we could just throw into a composter to turn it back into soil.
Did you guys hear her? Did you hear what she said? Composting? You want to speak to that, Lauren?
So composting, it's true. I mean, when you look at your trash, or when I look at my trash, all of it is like she said, with vegetables that on Sunday I'm like, I'm going to be this great person and eat all these fruits and vegetables, but by Friday they're all kind of wilted and I'm like, I don't know about that. Well, composting is a great way to reuse those because they have a lot of nitrogens. They have a lot of different vitamins and minerals just kind of already built into them. But when they go back into the soil, they're going to feed that next thing that you're planting, or that next, decorative plant that you've already planted. We have tried to work with Heifer because they've got the urban farm. So a lot of the things that we have that are compostable, they actually go over there. And what we found is that there's brown composting and green composting, and there's actually different types because they all break down differently. So if you're into chemistry, if you're into earth science and all of that, definitely look into that because that's a great side project that you can probably get some extra points off of.
Any other questions?
For major trash companies that take in trash, do they ever use composting for stuff?
I honestly don't know. I haven't looked into that large of a scale.
There's a lot of the, Julie, there's a lot of the landfills that are trying to capitalize on that methane gas and stuff, and there's a lot of regulations that go into the landfill set up and how they process it. And so you're trying to figure out ways to capitalize on some of the stuff that's produced. I know there's a university somewhere that is completely powered by gas from a landfill. Yeah, you could do some research on that. It's going up there.
Any other questions?
So I have a few closing remarks, if I can. So I will always tell this story as I end my presentations because I think it's important to share with you guys the fact that life seems to be easy, but I've had some hard times in life. In fact, my husband, I have been married to for 20-some years. 2 years into the 22nd year, he came to me and he said, I want a divorce. He said, because you're married to your job. And so I tell people all the time, students as well as adults, make sure you have a balanced work life and play it sometimes and work sometimes. You don't feel like you have to work all of the time. I learned that the hard way because when he came to me and said he wanted a divorce, I asked him what could I do to make him change his mind. He said that he wanted to move out, so he moved out, and I fought for what I love. And I'll tell you to do that too. And that's why I fight so hard for the environment, because it's something that I love. Whatever it is that you love, fight hard for it. So we got some good counseling. After 3 months, he came back. I learned to be a better wife, a better partner. I learned to say yes more and no more. He did too. Some things that he learned too. But 2 years later, he came back to me and he said he was leaving again. And this time, when he said he was leaving, I was like, Gloria Gaynor, go out the door, go turn around now, because you're not welcome anymore. Because I knew I had been the best wife that I could be over that last 2 years. But this time, my husband was leaving me because he was dying. He had stomach cancer at the age of 50, and he was about to pass away. And it was with his dying that I learned a lot about living. And when I talk about a community and how important it is to work together and have people there for you, I was fortunate because we had 32 people to help him with his final wishes. He wanted every day to feel like Christmas in our house. So 32 of my colleagues from all over those places that I lived, they came to help me take care of him. And they also were there to make sure that we had Christmas every day. But one day, it was close to our anniversary, and I was crying because I was sad. Crying is okay. Sometimes it's okay to cry. It's like an inside shower cleansing us. And I was crying, and he said, you know, you don't have to do this. You have some skills that your mother taught you that are very helpful. And one of them was, I remember my mother teaching me the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I want you guys to help me sing that song as I leave. This is all I'm asking about. Row, row, row your boat. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is good. Let me try this group over here. Come on. Can you guys remember that over there? That's cool. It's hot, hot, hot. Let's go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is good. They give a round of applause over here. That song has many meanings. It says, my mother said, it says, roll, 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 don't stop. Environmental stewardship, passing that pie, roll, 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 don't stop. Roll, 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 don't quit. And then it says, roll your boat, right? Tell your neighbor, roll your boat. Roll your boat. The problem is we're too busy trying to roll somebody else's boat. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Roll, roll, roll your boat. And then it says gently. We don't always have to be Rambo. Gently sometimes works in the environmental stewardship movement. I chose not to be one that fought like other people did. I used my voice. You can use your voice to get things done sometimes. I also chose to be a woman in conservation that didn't have to act like a guy. I wanted to be myself. Row, row, row your boat gently. And then it says down the stream. One of my favorite movies is I like to move it. I like He said, you could be on the right track, but if you're standing still, you still get run over. So keep moving. And then it says, merrily, this is what I like the best. It's all about happiness. I choose happiness. My life hasn't always been easy. My husband was about to die. He encouraged me to choose happiness. And that's what I encourage you to do. Look for ways to choose happiness. And then it says, life is but a dream. And I tell you to go work your dreams right now. Go work your dreams because they are important. And then as he was about to die, it was on his dying bed that he reminded me that my mother had died 2 weeks before I graduated. And it was on her dying bed that we said this poem that later became a song. And the poem was, each day I live to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. And so in life, that's all about improving. Keep growing and growing.